Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, John Scholes. Well, welcome everybody to episode 40. We're continuing to have just a ton of fun in bringing conversations with folks in Seattle that are creating and making and shaping cool things, cool experiences, developments, restaurants, art and culture, things that make our city what it is, and things that we all get to take part in. It's been a lot of fun bringing this podcast to all of you. And if this is your first episode, thanks for tuning in, and encourage you to go back into the library and take a look at some of the other conversations, a look and a listen to some of the other conversations that we've been fortunate to bring to all of you folks that are just making really cool things happen in our city. And for episode 40, I get the chance to sit down with Dani Cone, a wonderful person, a wonderful Seattleite, and one of our creative, terrific, gutsy entrepreneurs and small business owners in the city. Dani has been making coffee since 1991. She baristaed herself through high school and college. Her grandma Molly imparted some important advice to Dani early in her life, which was be good and do well. And Dani took that advice and started Fuel Coffee in 2005, wanting to create a place that she wanted to be in, a place the neighborhood wanted to be in, and then went on to open 3 locations. After that, her grandma Molly came in handy again when she looked to start High Five Pies in the Great Recession in 2008, selling pies out of her coffee shops and borrowing the recipes from Grandma Molly, both for the crust and I think pies generally, and then went to create a wholesale business for High Five Pies and opened the first retail shop in 2011. And then in 2014, Dani opened Cone and Steiner, a general store, and has opened a couple of locations since, and has a location in downtown Seattle in the Pioneer Square neighborhood where Dani calls home today. Dani and I discussed steering her business through the pandemic, the state of her business today, what's been changed by the pandemic, what continues and what persists. We discussed the impact of Swiftie weekend on her business, Taylor Swift's 2 nights at Lumen Field, just around the corner from Cone and Steiner in Pioneer Square. She gives some advice to those thinking of starting a business. And I asked her what she would do if she were mayor for a day. We discussed the importance of the third place in our community. A number of her businesses have really taken that role of becoming a third place in our community, and Dani's very intentional about how she facilitates that. And we discuss her first job, and we get Dani's itinerary for her perfect Saturday in the city of Seattle. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Dani Cone, founder of High Five Pies, Cone and Steiner, and Fuel Coffee. So thank you again for making time.
Thank you.
How have you been, and how is the business? And is there anything left on your shelves after Swiftie?
Oh, we were just talking about that. It was
in Pioneer Square.
Bananas.
Yeah.
Did you go down there at all?
I was out of town, but I've gotten many reports.
It was like nothing I've ever seen, like nothing I could have anticipated. Couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
We were, just from Friday at 5 a.m. as people started lining up down the street, around the corner.
Oh, that was the merch day,
just
right?
For the merch
For the
truck.
merch. So they were out there at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lined up, like a bunch of them. And then they just kept coming and coming. The truck didn't open till 10. And they were there all day, Friday, just for merch and hanging out, I guess. Saturday, starting from early on, again, lining up for merch, but also just to be around the show atmosphere. So tons of people in the neighborhood. On top of that, and Sunday too, the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah. Which those fans always show up. I think those are always our busiest Mariners days. Yeah. For sure. So the 2 of them together. Business was good. Oh my gosh. It was all hands on deck. You staffed up? We did as much as we could. And then, but you always have folks who last minute, they're not feeling well, they can't make it. Yeah. And so it was all hands on deck. Did you open early and close later than normal, or similar hours? We kept the same hours. Yeah. It was just, we didn't stop moving, like line around the counter, hours on end. I spent hours on end in the walk-in cooler, just in the cooler, stocking as fast as I could. Yeah. I would break open a case of something, put all beverages and whatever, putting the beverages out there, as soon as I would slide them down the row, the door opened on the other side, they were out. I was just like back and forth.
It was a warm weekend too. People needed their cold beverages and other items.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Water, everything flew.
Well, that's all good news.
It was great. It was, and the crowd was so positive, so like communal, and I just such a great vibe.
I got a similar report on just how happy everybody was to be there. And like, people were like,
polite.
oh no, you go ahead of me. Like all these lines, like, oh no, it's okay. You get it. You go.
Like, and meeting each other and just like chatting amongst themselves and just all there to enjoy. And you could just feel it in the air. It was great. And I've
I was
never
sad to miss it. I'm a big Taylor fan.
Are you?
I am. She's incredible.
Oh my God, I love
talent.
that. She really
creator,
is. I'm a new fan.
Incredible business person. Yeah.
As far as that and being an outstanding role model.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, yes, creating the brand that she's created, an incredible talent, absolutely. But just, a great role model for so many people. And I love the fact that I have never seen so many sequins and fringe around the neighborhood. And all week so far, I see like little remnants of sequins on the sidewalk or feather boa pieces on the sidewalk. And it's like, oh yeah,
we got dusted.
Yeah.
So she doesn't come to town every weekend. So how's business generally throughout?
I wish she did.
Yeah, so do I. How's business generally throughout the spring and summer?
It's been I'm very pleased and grateful to say it's been a great spring and summer. I feel like Q1 is always slow for us, and it was kind of extra slow. And then, but what we did start seeing, let's see, around April, is things got busier. Like we started seeing summer numbers in spring, which I was thrilled for, of course, and all around the neighborhood. And I remember around that time too, you guys are always so great about putting out such great statistics that I love. I'm a super data nerd, so I love that stuff. And it seemed like tour season was starting earlier, more cruise ships or docking. I can't remember what you call that. But more than ever, right?
Yeah.
Or a busier season planned.
Yeah, that kicked off in April, right?
Yeah.
So,
everything seemed to like ramp up earlier. So it's been a great spring and summer so far.
That's good.
Yeah.
And how are you doing? Are you getting out? Are you traveling? Or are you having to be chained to the business?
Oh, yeah. I'm not good at traveling and leaving. No, I'm here.
Yeah. So I don't like to dwell too much on the pandemic, but whenever we're talking to entrepreneurs, folks that ran a small business,
it was a thing. It happened.
Through that period,
Yeah.
I just have a lot of respect for the stamina and fortitude that it took to get through that. And do you recall what your toughest day was? And was there a day where you had that was the most hopeful, where you had come through a bit and you saw the other side? But what was the toughest day?
Good question. Well, I think we can all acknowledge it was tough on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly, I know my reality as a business owner, but so many people I've talked to, business owners or not, obviously, just a tough time no matter what. And all of us who are here in downtown Seattle, just seeing the city in the way that it was.
Yeah. Especially in that neighborhood too, right?
God.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking. I honestly will start crying if I talk about it. It's just,
and we should say you live in the neighborhood too, in Pioneer Square, right? Around the corner from you.
Now I do. Yeah. At the time I wasn't.
Yeah.
I've lived on Capitol Hill for the past 100 years or so, and then just moved down to Pioneer Square in the last year.
Gotcha.
Which has been great.
Yeah.
But at the time, as the pandemic hit, we had our store on First and Madison.
Yeah.
That we now don't have due to the pandemic, and the Pioneer Square store and Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill being more residential kind of was a little bit more, down, but a little bit more consistent because of the residential, and ended up then picking up because we were able to serve even more people in the neighborhood because they were home.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as like a toughest day, I'm sure you can relate. A lot of those days blend together as like one big gray blob.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking this morning as I was standing outside and thinking back to that time. And actually, I was thinking about, because when we were talking one time, it was at the downtown store.
Yeah, on First.
And I was thinking thinking about the pandemic time and being at that store after it had closed because it was empty. We had taken all the stuff out. And so that was kind of where I would office, or a couple of us would, because it's 1,800 square feet. You can definitely distance when the store is empty. Mm-hmm. And just being out there, and the windows were boarded up. So I would open the front door, stand out on the street, look up and down First Avenue, and not see a human, not see a car, not see movement at all. And it was like, I could have parked horizontal in the street and nobody was there but me and some pigeons and stuff. But, and I kept thinking, or this morning as I was standing outside, I'm thinking, why does it, anytime I think about those times, I can't remember like spring and summer during those. I feel like it was always kind of darker in thinking back, but I'm sure we had seasons. But
it all felt like those late days in November that were dark and wet.
It did. And
miserable.
Slow.
Yeah.
Really slow. It was. So there's not one day, because I feel like there was so much, in going through it, nothing really happened fast. Mm-hmm. It felt like every day we were kind of waiting to see, or maybe today it'll turn, and then just kind of settled into this low key, grayness. And it just kind of melted together. But in looking back on it, I don't know. Yeah, a tough time, but in terms of a hopeful time, I think I'm trying to think if like a day or some event stands out. And again, that kind of happens over time too. But I do remember I remember, the first time we saw some regulars that we hadn't seen, say, in a while. Maybe they had left for a little bit and then they returned. And it was like, like every day we'd see, when we started to see a couple more people come in, it was like a reunion and like a homecoming, like, oh my God, oh, good, you're still out there. Right. And they would come in and say, oh God, you're still here.
Yeah.
Thank God, and I remember talking about this before, but it is the honest truth. There was a day in Pioneer Square, or was I downtown? I can't recall, and I have no idea when during the pandemic it was, but I remember it had been a little while, and then the first time that I saw the mid folks, and I saw those bright yellow jackets down the street on bikes, and I hadn't seen them in a while. Maybe they were around, I don't know. And I saw them, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. We're not just out here dying on a limb. Yeah. Like, okay, things are coming back. There are people, there are eyes on the city. We're not alone here. This is happening. And people are here and still out there caring, and like seeing those two people in their bright yellow jackets coming down the street. It was definitely a sign of something, not that then everything turned around, but it was a sign for sure of some change. So
yeah, we had staffed.
So thank you for that.
We had staffed down quite a bit in the early part of 2020 and mid, and then brought everybody back in August of
2020.
2020, yeah, and hit the streets.
Oh, it was that soon?
Yeah. But
wow.
we furloughed a lot of folks for a good number of months, which was really difficult. We just didn't know if property owners would be able to continue to pay their assessment bills, which go to support those services. But thankfully they did. And
throughout,
yeah.
Oh,
and
that is
we
great.
were able to
it's
bring back
so
services and bring back folks to the team. So
yeah.
I bet your regulars were happy that you remembered them as regulars, even in their absence, right? It's like their regular status was preserved, even if they weren't coming in.
Absolutely. Burned in my brain.
So how has your business changed after
Oh gosh.
Those tough times.
Quite a bit. And definitely I'll say for the better. I mean, there's something that first, I mean, there's the element of wow. I mean, I knew before that I was super lucky to work with outstanding people, but good Lord, going through something like that, the hardest times, the darkest times, the change, you know, like, okay, we're closing the store times. It is not for the faint of heart. And to make it through with, you know, the team that I did, God, they're incredible. And so not that was a new learning, but learning even more like, oh my God, I knew I adored these people before, but now, I mean, I'll do anything for them, you know, for sure, anytime. So there's that, but also we had a lot of learnings about how to do business, how we do business, because during so much of that time, we had to do things we never thought we'd have to do and never thought we could. We never thought we could, you know, run the store with less than, you know, this amount of people. But then, just like we had to lay off almost everybody except for 5 of us. And who would have thought? Can we run multiple stores with 5 people? Well, yeah. If you have to, you will. And you figure that out. It's not pretty. And but you figure things out, and you figure out then what needs to adjust. So certainly we learned a lot about efficiency there and developed then better systems to do things because we had less people and less money to do things. So we figured out better ways to do it. And there were a lot of learnings about product mix too, as certainly with a significantly reduced population, what people were buying and when, and the frequency certainly changed. Granted, as people came back, that changes again, but there's still learnings in that the office population is not back in the way that it was. It's not Monday through Friday. It's not the bread and butter that it was specifically at Pioneer Square. And so with that, you know, even though as more people fill in, like great tour season and you know, whenever the weather's nice, more people come out. But there's a lot, there are definitely differences then in product mix and quantities and frequencies of ordering and stocking and other systems that have to be adjusted accordingly. So it continues to be a lot of learning for sure.
And speaking of products, what are some of your favorites at Cone and Steiner? Oh
God. Okay, well, I think it's probably obvious that I love food, so it's hard for me to pick a favorite. Of course, coffee is my go-to, but oh my gosh, so many great local products. And that's one of my favorite parts of the store and something that did not change, pandemic be damned. One of the things that I think actually through the pandemic, I mean, I know, actually got stronger is is how much we feature local products, especially during that time, as so many of these great local vendors, you know, who spend all day, every day thinking about their jam or whatever it is. So many of their sales channels were just decimated. And so, but we were still open. And so we were able to reach out to people, either host them for pop-ups or bring them in on the shelves because they weren't able to go to the farmer's market or that holiday market or what have you. So we have even more local products now. So when I think of my favorites, of course, I think of those. Intrigue chocolate jumps to mind. Oh, I mean, good grief. It's so great. It's so great. And what I love almost as much as I love their chocolate is hearing Aaron and Carl describe it. Aaron has the most incredible palate. Certainly, they're both very talented and skilled, but also Aaron has a way of like describing what goes into the process and the flavor notes that like takes you away in a daydream. I kid you not. It is just unreal. So
like listening to someone talk about wine.
Yeah, it's so much like that. It's like this delicious thing and an amazing story.
Yeah.
Great. So that jumps to mind, of course. Like I said, coffees. Can't go wrong there. We have Cafe Vita, Fuel Coffee, and Stamp Act, some of my favorites in town. Oh my God, all I'm thinking about are sweets. This is my problem. Yeah, lots of great things.
And are there stores around the country that you visit that are inspirations for what you've created here? Things, ideas for product mix or design, layout that you steal? Places that you'd recommend people checking out if they're visiting other great cities around our country or beyond?
Yeah. I mean, I will say, because I really fail at taking time off and doing like, quote, fun things, I haven't been to as many of those places as I have researched them online. But a couple the number one that jumps to mind that I was obsessed with even before starting Cone and Steiner is in San Francisco, called Buy Right. And it is a most wonderful, beautiful store, and certainly a bit of a different model in that over the decades and decades that they've been around, they've developed this pretty deep vertical integration. And now they have their own dairy. So they have their own cows for the milk that makes their ice cream and all the things. So it's a little bit deeper than we go, for sure.
No cows.
But yeah, not yet. No. What am I saying? No, that's not us. But they're one of my favorites for sure. And there's so many little markets. I'm thinking of places that you kind of find along the way, whether out on the coast or as you're traveling, and it's just in some small town where, they don't have the Trader Joe's or the Whole Foods or what have you. You find these stores all over the place, whether they're specialty and high end or they're just literally the store that's there. And I feel like anytime I go anywhere, whether around the city or outside the city, close, far, or whatever, I always try and find what's their version of like what we do. A neighborhood market, a general store, a specialty convenience store, any sort of version of that, because I feel like then you can really get a sense of who lives there, what do they like to eat and drink, and what's the rhythm of things there. I mean, you can tell by what's on the shelves and what is, obviously a top mover or what's sitting there and collecting dust. And you can get a feel for that place. So I don't know. I love going to those places, and I feel like I kind of glean from any and all.
And speaking of place and those places, and Cone and Steiner has very much acted as sort of this third place. I mean, you've got great seating in there, collateral information of what's going on in the neighborhood and from other organizations, like Friends of Waterfront Seattle. And it's a place people can go to connect and learn about things in addition to buying and enjoying, tasting great local food and beverage. Does it still serve that function today? And what do you think of as the role of kind of the third place today post-pandemic? Is it still relevant? Do people still want that third place?
Well, thank you for bringing all of that up, because I love that. I mean, that's such an important part to me personally, of what we do is creating that space. So thanks for recognizing it. And as I feel like it is truly more important now than even before. I think it's always been important. Hence the reason I've spent my entire career in places like this, in these third place type of places, and in the service industry. But now more than ever, coming out of the pandemic, being open throughout the pandemic, even when you couldn't sit inside and that wasn't allowed, but to have a place, it meant so much to people from what we heard, to have a place to go. This place is open. you are welcome here and there are good things to eat and drink. And I feel like when everything else was taken away, it was a really tangible example of that very basic human need, not just to eat and drink, but to connect, even in a brief, masked way, and as fast as you can through plexiglass, whatever it is, but to see each other and to be able to walk into a place and feel like somebody there is glad to see you. And I think we all need that always, but more so now as people are reemerging, getting back to, well, I was going to say getting back to routines, but maybe in an adjusted way.
Building new ones.
Yeah, or revised even.
Yeah.
Maybe it's totally different. Maybe it's just a different version, but still having these like touchstone places where they used to go or they are a new regular at, where they have that connection as they come back out and we all kind of, poke our heads up and see, okay, what is this new landscape like? How are we going to do this? And, having these places to go, I think, reminds us that we're all figuring this out together.
So these places and businesses you've created, whether it's Fuel or High Five Pies or Cone and Steiner, I mean, they're very much your babies, your vision, your passion. How do you inspire the people that work for you to care about them as much as you do?
Wow, what a great question. I can only hope that I could, I guess, is the first thing that comes to mind. I hope that people that I get to work with can see how much it means to me and hopefully like and if they want to work there, I can only assume they get that same kind of feeling of the importance of food and drink as a connector of people and even beyond that, and having this place to come and gather. There's plenty of places people can work in the city, especially in food and beverage. So I feel like with all those options, people find their place and
they're
hopefully
sort of self-selecting into
what
you've created, which is distinct and unique.
Yeah. If you really love nightlife, then you're probably, then there's plenty of great places you can work and plug into that scene, or if you, whatever it is. And so hopefully, yes, self-select, and that they also really get the importance of being there for the local community, not just our customers, but on the vendor side too, and get that part of our business.
There's a fair amount of vacancy still in downtown Seattle at the street level storefronts, although we've had a number of openings throughout downtown over the last 6 months. What's your advice for a new small business owner, a new entrepreneur that maybe wasn't operating anything pre-pandemic, but they're seeing opportunity with cheaper rents and some city programs like Seattle Restored that are helping entrepreneurs find space?
Isn't that the greatest program?
Yeah, we just need to scale it and expand it, but it's had a great start.
And it's had a great impact. I mean, I think it's been a great
And you've seen
success.
some of that in Pioneer Square, I assume, which has been
we see
kind
it
of a
all
focus
over.
area,
We've
right?
hosted some of it.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that program. I think it's so brilliant and such an incredible way to activate. Yes, there are still a lot of vacancies. We know that, we see that. But what a great way to not just activate those spaces, but with people and products and businesses or art that maybe wouldn't have even thought they could ever have a space because they can't sign a 5 or 10-year lease or isn't that expensive. But wow, it creates such access, which then benefits all of us. It activates the space. People walking by get to see art, product, business, whatever it is that, previously, how would they know of it maybe? And so it's just been great.
And kudos to the city for playing this matchmaking role between property owners and small business entrepreneur folks that... And
all the organizations involved at Shun Pike and Good Business Network. Just, I'm a huge fan. So for new entrepreneurs, to your point too, which really gets me excited, is I have also seen new businesses opening around downtown in Pioneer Squares. I walk around and I mean, like all the, even in the past couple weeks.
Yeah. Around the corner from you? Yeah.
What, have you?
No, I went by it, but I haven't gone in yet. But
great.
I love the idea, the concept of all crammed in there.
Oh my gosh. And that space is gorgeous, right? And I love that. I mean, it's still as gorgeous as ever, but they've kind of put their own look to it too. And it's just, it's amazing.
Italian food and sneakers. And what else?
When I first read about that, I was like, I mean, I love both. So great. But I thought, how does that work? And I haven't seen a blended concept like that. And I went in and it's like, I don't know, but it does.
It works.
It totally works.
I gotta get in there.
Can't wait to go back. Yeah. But to see that open, which in a marquee space and, with very known entity and admired business owners who are starting that. But then to see a number of other things just right within a few blocks of us opening. Lemon Grove Vintage just opened a couple weeks ago.
I don't know this one. What are they doing?
One right next to Zeitgeist.
Okay.
They took that space, pretty sizable.
Yeah, right on Jackson.
Yeah.
Right off Jackson.
Vintage.
Cool.
And all sort clothing, housewares, accessories, really well curated and by a couple people who are pros at that too. So how cool. I mean, like straight up retail. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's something
please.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, we were saying that before the pandemic.
Are earlier along in their visioning for their concept small business, what nuggets of wisdom would you provide to them, having done this for many years and this being in your blood with your family, being in this work for so long?
I think it's important to remember that people, none of us are reinventing the wheel here, no matter what, unless you like literally are. But if you're starting a small business, especially a brick and mortar, I think it's important to remember there are many who have done, if not the same, type of thing in that industry, then maybe something that at least has some common denominators, and reach out to people and ask for help, because people will help. So many people I've talked to think, well, I wouldn't want to ask restaurant owner so-and-so because why would they tell me how I should, what payroll company they use or something. I'm like, why wouldn't they? Just ask. People are, we're all here to help each other. We all want to support other business owners. And more times than not, people will certainly help. And if they can't, or if you can't find somebody to ask, then there are other resources out there. And just all of that to say, I would suggest to them or remind them that they're not alone
in this, and
to reach out.
Yeah.
And don't try and be the pro at everything, and find the people that are and just plug in with them, and everybody do what you're best at and come together, and then you've got that full picture.
That's good advice. So if you were mayor of Seattle for a day and you had the opportunity to do a few things to help small businesses in our city.
Oh my God.
What would be like the one or two things you did before clocking out that day?
I will say, I think one of the positives from the pandemic is that there has been a better aggregation of resources and materials for guidance, or who should I call if this, that, or the other, for small business owners. I think there's
better communication from the city. Yeah,
better connection and access to that. I think there's always more that can be done for that. because that's an ever-growing list of what do people need, and that changes. So I think, having that go-to resource, but more than anything, what I found through so many years and so many meetings in different, business oriented groups or neighborhood groups or you name it, it's always surprising to me that inevitably in any one of those groups, there's somebody there who it's their first time going, connecting in a informal way with other business owners or something. And it comes up like, gosh, why don't we do this more often? So some way to continue to bring people together and create those connections between business owners and others that can help, whether it's the powers that be in the city, some outlet for that too.
Helping people learn from each other, one another, access resources and
giving them ways to come together. I mean, sure, you could say anybody could send out an email to, all of the businesses within a mile of them and try and find a date. You can all get together, but forget it.
Yeah, somebody's got to convene and catalyze that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's 100 other things I would do.
That you'd wave the wand at.
Yeah.
What's next? I think we talked several years ago, and you had a number. This is all pre-pandemic, and you had some interesting ideas and concepts and innovative thinking around potential business ventures. Are you focused on what's next, or are you still in the frame of stabilizing, regrowing Cone and Steiner and the other businesses today?
I will say, and I'm so grateful to say this, I mean, had we had this conversation even 6-8 months ago, we were still pretty focused, not as much even on survival. I mean, survival has been the name of the game for the past couple of years. And then slowly, it kind of transitioned to, okay, I think we're surviving, so stabilize and fortify. So that's probably what I would have said, 6-8 months ago. And now I feel like we're very eager to get back to the growth plans that we had. Granted, not those plans, because that doesn't quite apply, those specific things we were doing. The landscape has changed for sure. Yeah. But getting back to growth is a very exciting top priority for us. So we're looking at doing that. Looking into what does that mean now? Because it is different than 2019. And what have we learned? How can we use that in our growth going forward? And for us, that means maybe it's smaller format. Maybe it's collaborating with other complementary concepts in co-location. I mean, to the Darkolinos and Home Team, who would have thought Italian and sneakers.
The lines are blurred.
Yeah. And so what else, goes with our concept? How can we, and how would that bring benefit to a neighborhood? And these days, what sort of neighborhood? Is that the downtown area? Is it more residential? Is it a blend? Is it lobbies of hotels? Like all of these things. I mean, so much has changed, but we do see a pretty exciting path forward to get back to growth. It's just about really digging into, okay, well, what does that look like now? And trying these things out.
And you feel you can be, or maybe you need to be, more expansive in your thinking about that next concept, because the boundaries that existed previously maybe aren't there anymore?
Yes, for sure. I mean, and just the way people work is different. The way people, their daily paths are different. Their daily routines are different. So whereas before, as we had a very robust office population in Pioneer Square, and yes, some of it's coming back, but not in the same volume, but our location certainly made sense, and we hit those people and what have you. But if not all of those people are there or coming back, for us as a specialty convenience store, it's about rethinking, okay, what does it mean to be convenient to people? Where are people? How are they living, working, commuting, doing their daily routines these days that is similar to before or different from before? And where do we meet them along the way?
When you think about your customer, consumers generally, what do you think hasn't changed? Are there things that you think of like, these are the truths that people always want, and preferences, desires that haven't been fundamentally changed by the pandemic? Do you have a few of those that come to mind that become kind of your North Star in how you build a new concept and continue running the great businesses you have?
Yeah. Interestingly, the strongest performing categories in our store didn't necessarily change through the pandemic, just the volume did. So people still love beer and wine, thank God. And guess what? They still like snacks and specialty local chocolates and sandwiches. So I think that we see quite a bit of consistency with that throughout all of the years of doing this business. Just the volume has changed. But those categories are pretty strong. So even in moving forward, and as we look at these different formats and different locations, or locations that are kind of that mix of residential and daytime, those kind of, and think about those categories, they still pertain to that.
So we have a couple standard questions on the podcast, Dani. The first, I think I know the answer to, but maybe our listeners don't. What was your first job?
Oh, do you know?
I think I do. It had something to do with cleaning up hair salons.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Right. You have a great memory.
Some research has been done.
Oh, yeah.
Pre-podcast.
That's a good one. Yes. My first job was at a hair salon, and I was...
in Seattle?
Yes. Yeah. And I was responsible for cleaning the hair out of the drains. How old was I? Maybe 12, 13.
Yeah.
So my job was to go around, sweep up the hair, clean the hair out of all the drains, all the hair sink drains, clean the bathroom, and then go across the street to the grocery store and get whatever anybody wanted for lunch. And it was great.
The customers, the stylists, everybody?
Yeah, anybody who wanted anything. Wow, that's a service. It wasn't that was just part of my job. I mean, yeah. And it was great. I was so excited to get that job because it was a job. I mean, I got to make my own money, which I got to spend on whatever I wanted then, and it was, I don't know, probably $4 an hour or something, but I didn't care. I thought it was great. I mean, cleaning out the hair part wasn't awesome, but
you probably have some of the cleanest drains around at your house.
Yeah, it definitely brings back some memories, and I feel like I can still smell that specific shampoo. And I mean, this was a long time ago, but like it's still in my memory somewhere, whatever that was that they're using. I don't know.
Smells and music are powerful.
Yes,
figures of memory
totally.
Right there. Yeah. Our other question is your perfect Saturday in the city of Seattle, if you could design it from sort of morning till evening. And I suspect you might say, well, I'm going to be working at the store and behind the counter. And so
that's how it starts anyway.
but
that's good.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I like that. Yeah. I like that on Saturdays too, because it's a different pace. Yeah. I mean, they're different. Yeah. It doesn't,
the general store on a Saturday morning is a great vibe.
And I feel like that's the time. First of all, I get many less emails on the weekend because most people are like on a weekend or something. Usually people don't want to have meetings on weekends. So when I go in on Saturday morning, it's like, oh man.
You can really enjoy being there.
And I can get stuff done, and like, okay, catch up on whatever projects. If I want to reset something or stock or...
And you have a great commute
package
now.
Candy. Not bad, right?
Not to
not too much
broadcast
traffic.
your residential location.
It's close by.
You're close.
Walking distance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like Saturday mornings there for sure. So I think that's a neat way to start the day. And then, gosh, I have so loved hearing what other people have said about this. I'm like, oh my God. I'm honestly
Did you catch Amy Peck's episode, Monorail Espresso?
Oh my God.
I was
only
exhausted.
halfway through. And oh no, but I had to hear her day. Okay, that day.
Epic.
That is epic.
Yeah.
That is the perfect word for it. I was exhausted listening to it, but it sounds great.
Yeah.
It sounds so great. I'm like, oh yeah, I might like that too. After hearing that, I was very excited to hopefully get to meet her sometime. I'm like, who is this amazing person who would do all this great stuff?
They're terrific. Business owner downtown.
I am, and one of my favorites too. I am not that exciting or adventurous or interesting. So there's that. So yeah, I would work. I love, again, no surprise, I love eating, and I especially love eating baked goods.
Mm-hmm.
So there's usually a baked good, go somewhere else for something delicious, and coffee, of course. So, I'd work. I'd go get a pastry and coffee somewhere to go, so I can I like to keep moving.
Yeah.
I don't like to. Let's go somewhere. And I was trying to think, like, okay, a perfect day. I don't have a go-to. I love walking through so many of the parks around here, or just walking around. I like, city walks more so than driving to a hike. Not that that's lovely too, but I like to, there's so much if you just walk around, take an hour and pick a direction, and you're guaranteed to see stuff that you don't usually see if you're driving by or taking the bus by. So, but I specifically love Volunteer Park, of course. Love walking around there anytime, any season. Doesn't have to be a Saturday. I love walking on Alki, and I just get the biggest kick out of, like, here you are, so close to the city, and you can walk along there and like see nature, like seals. Like, what?
Yep.
How is this? I don't know. It fascinates me. Like actual, real wildlife right there. So, I do
the
love
smell
that.
of the salt water this morning downtown was something. There's not many downtowns where you get to wake up in the morning and smell salt water.
Yeah, where you can smell that and see mountains.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. So anyway, there's some sort of walk. There's baked good. There's walking. And I love going to vintage stores for sure. And I'd say, usually I'm around Capitol Hill or Pioneer Square, but if I'm not in one of those places, my other favorite part of town is Georgetown.
Oh yeah, great part of town.
Yeah.
What drew you to live in Pioneer Square? And how are you enjoying it?
I'm loving it. One of the most incredible people I have ever met in this city, Kevin Daniels, who we all know and love, is an incredible visionary, and also just like, wow, what an amazing person. So I am a fan of him. I'm a fan of his buildings. I had an opportunity to live in one of them and couldn't pass it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's been great. I forgot where, I love Capitol Hill, and like I said, been living up there for centuries. And I lived along 19th, right by our store up there, which is my favorite neighborhood for sure. And it's so beautiful, and the old trees and the old houses and everything. I just love it, right by Volunteer Park, all the things. But what I realized when I moved down here, and I remember from in my youth when I was living above the Wild Rose and on other places around there. I love being around people, noise, action, and like whatever's going on. So I love getting to see all parts of the day, not just my day at work and like those hours, but I see what happens late at night out my window or early in the morning. The whole rhythm of 24 hours.
Yeah. When 70,000 Taylor Swift fans descend.
And what that looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, and one of my favorite parts, so that's great. But my other favorite part of that whole kind of thing is I get to watch how that's all set up and broken down. And I love that. Like all the semis coming in with this, that, I don't even know. But man, they work so fast. And it is such a production.
And you got to see All-Star Week come together.
All-Star Week, build Play Ball Park out there.
Yeah.
I remember like seeing the home show or the boat show, and all the boats are staged out in the parking lot. And it's like I get a preview of the whole show, which is, I just love it. But my favorite part, when I moved in, it was during Seahawks season, and oh my God, getting like a front row seat, if you will, to the pregame Blue Thunder show, honestly, is now one of my favorite things in the entire city. I love it. Same with the Sound Wave. Is that the right name?
The Sounders Band, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And March to the Match. Yeah.
Oh my God. I love these people so much. And there they are. It's like a free show.
Free entertainment.
And it's so great. I can't get enough. So it's great.
Yeah, I'm similar. I need a lot of stimulation.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of free.
You live downtown too, right?
You get a lot of free stimulation downtown.
Right. You look out your window and who knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Or you step outside and like there's people, there's things. And I feel like this is, and living in Pioneer Square, it's always been one of the places in Seattle, like to me, that really feel like a city. And I love that.
Yeah.
I like
one of the great neighborhoods.
Yeah. I like big cities. I like crowded. I like people around. It's great.
And only getting better, I think, with the
absolutely
waterfront that'll be open 2 summers from now. I think there's not a neighborhood that's going to benefit more from that project than
a
Pioneer
game
Square.
Changer.
Yeah.
Well, I think for the entire city.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, for the entire city's economy, for tour, I mean, so much. And such a long time coming. And it is going to be spectacular.
And worth the wait.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Dani, for making time to come on Seattle City
Thank
Makers
you.
and for being a listener that warms our hearts.
A fan. A super fan, for sure.
And for what you're doing and have done to create just super cool experiences in our city for all of us to enjoy. I think never take for granted the risk and grit of our small business leaders that take a chance to go create something cool, sustain it through the good times and the bad, and it's like there for all of us to enjoy. I mean, it takes all of us. Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't be here without people like you coming in. So, this is what makes our city. Wonderful. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dani Cone, a terrific entrepreneur and creative business leader in our city, and now a resident of downtown in the Pioneer Square neighborhood. Grateful to be able to call Dani a neighbor, and grateful for her making time in her busy schedule to come on Seattle City Makers. Well, I want to close out with a recommendation for what you just can't miss in downtown Seattle. This could be something that is recently reopened or that just opened, that is new, or something that might be coming. And in this case, I want to highlight Downtown Spirits, which is opening the first ever checkout-free beer, wine, and spirits store powered by Amazon's Just Walk Out technology. They're going to open their doors, grand opening slated for Thursday, August 10th. They're in the base of the building I office out of, that the Downtown Seattle Association office is out of. So I'm very excited. My liver is not, but this is a terrific store. I poked my head in there today, 4,200 square feet on 7th Avenue. If you remember and are familiar with Downtown Spirits, you'll remember that they had a location on 7th just off Dani Way and have moved closer into the core of downtown. And it's a great looking shop, and the technology of just being able to walk in there. You download their app first, you walk in and you grab things off the shelf, and Amazon's technology tells that app what you've got in your virtual shopping cart, or I guess in your arms and in your basket, and then you walk out. And that's the deal. So you are paying, but you're not paying in a traditional way. So super creative concept and a great selection. They've got some nice snacks in there too. So go check out Downtown Spirits. Congratulations to Marcus Warren, the founder and owner of Downtown Spirits, on his new location in downtown Seattle. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.